The coffee in front of her had already gone cold, but Rachel kept wrapping her hands around the cup as if the warmth might come back if she waited long enough. She sat near the large window of a small cafe in Portland, watching raindrops slide slowly down the glass. Anyone passing by would have thought she looked calm, maybe even peaceful. But inside her chest, her heart was quietly preparing itself for the familiar ache of disappointment. The kind that doesn't shock you anymore, the kind you expect. And if you were sitting where she was, waiting for someone who had already let you down so many times before, you might ask yourself the same painful question she had been asking all morning: why do we keep believing people will finally show up for us? Rachel had mastered the art of pretending everything was fine. She had learned it over years of waiting, forgiving, and hoping. It started when she was a little girl in a small town outside Denver. Her father, Michael, had always promised things he rarely delivered. Promises of trips to the park, birthday surprises, school recitals he would attend. She remembered sitting by the window as a child, watching the streetlights turn on one by one, waiting for headlights that never came. Her mother, Judith, used to say that some people love you, but they just don't know how to show up for you. Rachel believed that for a long time, because believing it hurt less than admitting the truth. As she grew older, that quiet hope followed her into adulthood like a shadow she couldn't shake. In college, she met Nathan, a charming man with kind eyes and endless dreams. He talked about building a future together, about the house they would buy someday, about children who would run through their backyard. Rachel believed every word. For a while, life even seemed to prove her right. But dreams built on words alone have fragile foundations. Nathan eventually left one afternoon with a soft apology and a suitcase, saying he needed to figure himself out. Rachel never saw him again. That was 8 years ago. Since then, Rachel had rebuilt her life piece by piece. She worked as a nurse in a busy hospital, spending her days caring for strangers who were often too sick or too tired to thank her. But she didn't mind. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose that filled the quiet spaces in her heart. Still, there were nights when she returned to her small apartment, kicked off her shoes, and felt the silence settle around her like a heavy blanket. 2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, Nathan reached out. His message had been simple but powerful enough to stir memories Rachel had carefully locked away. He said he was back in Oregon, that he had spent years realizing the mistakes he made, and that he wanted to see her again. He asked if they could meet. Rachel stared at that message for nearly an hour. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Another part, the same fragile part that once waited by windows as a child, whispered that maybe this time would be different. And so she agreed to meet him. Now she sat in the cafe, glancing occasionally at the clock above the counter. 10 minutes had passed. Then 15. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. She told herself it was nothing. Traffic could be bad. Maybe he couldn't find parking. She kept breathing slowly, practicing patience the way she had learned to do in hospital waiting rooms when families waited for news. But the truth was quietly creeping into her thoughts. This feeling was familiar. The slow realization that hope might once again be foolish. 25 minutes passed. Rachel forced herself to look outside again. A young couple hurried past under a shared umbrella, laughing as they splashed through puddles. For a moment, Rachel wondered what it felt like to trust someone completely. To know they would show up. To never have to sit alone wondering if your heart was about to be broken again. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the table. Her breath caught as she picked it up. The message was from Nathan. He said he was sorry. Something had come up. He couldn't make it today. Maybe they could try another time. Rachel stared at the words until they blurred slightly. For a few seconds, she didn't move. Her heart had prepared for disappointment, but that didn't make the pain any smaller. It simply meant the pain arrived quietly, Like rain you knew was coming but still got soaked by anyway. She set the phone down slowly. Outside, the rain continued falling. Rachel felt something shift inside her then, something subtle but powerful. For years she had believed patience meant waiting for people to become who they promised they would be. But sitting there in that quiet cafe, she realized patience could also mean finally choosing yourself. She stood up. The chair scraped lightly against the floor as she reached for her coat. The barista behind the counter glanced at her and smiled politely. Rachel returned the smile, and for the first time that day it felt real. When she stepped outside, the rain touched her face like cool mist. She didn't rush to cover herself. Instead, she walked slowly down the sidewalk, breathing deeply. The city felt alive around her, the sound of cars, footsteps, distant laughter. Life hadn't stopped simply because someone failed to show up. Rachel thought about the little girl she once was, sitting by a window waiting for headlights. She wished she could go back and tell that girl something important. That love shouldn't feel like endless waiting. That people who truly care will find their way to you without excuses. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. This time she didn't hurry to check it. Instead, she kept walking. The rain soaked through her hair and coat, but she felt strangely lighter with every step. For the first time in years, Rachel understood something simple yet powerful. Disappointment wasn't the end of her story. It was just the moment she finally decided she deserved better. And sometimes, the bravest thing a heart can do isn't waiting, it's walking away. Before the story ends, tell me in the comments, have you ever waited for someone who never truly showed up? And if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, but only if you believe stories like this remind us all to choose our own worth. Heavy Black Heart.